Good morning. This is Robert Cornicelli, National President for Veterans for America First. And with me today, I have one of my favorite members of Congress. This guy is not a politician. This is what we call an elected official, and there is a distinction. He represents the people, he represents veterans, he represents our military. Welcome, Mr. Cory Mills.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Now,
Again, you know the best part about all this is we just get to sit there and talk as vets. I mean, that's the best part about this. It's veterans supporting veterans, which I always love.
yeah, and it's funny because I wanted to get you in early so you can go out and campaign, and here we are talking 15 minutes about the military and the things you're going through. Politics is a dirty, disgusting business, and
Yeah.
it's not what we're used to. We're used to dirty and disgusting, but the good kind of dirty and disgusting. They'll say anything to discredit you, and I saw the debate, and I watch it over several times, and your opponents are disgusting human beings. And I'll say it now, I'll say it to their faces, to challenge you, a Bronze Star recipient, and I know you don't care about medals, but to challenge that is a disgrace, especially when you don't have one.
You know, the craziest part is that the people who are challenging me, not a single one of them are combat veterans themselves. Actually, there was only one who had ever even volunteered to go into the military, and that was during the Cold War era. And I believe he was either a supply guy or something like this. The other ones who were actually attacking my service had never even served. And when I asked one of my opponents, I said, look, I said, we had 20 years under the global war on terrorism. Why did you never volunteer and actually go and fight for this nation? And he always made the same comment. Well, my family has a long history of military service. And I'm like, that's great. And I respect your family service. But wouldn't that encourage you even more to want to put that uniform on, to proudly serve, to say that you are a part of something that's bigger than yourself? And literally, it was always the same excuse. Well, service works in all kinds of ways. And I said, well, you were a sports commentator for Fox. And I was like, I don't really think that's service in the minds of most Americans. And I said, you know, you're trying. I said, this is, and to your point, Robert, this is the difference between a politician and a statesman. Politicians talk. I would have, I could have, I should have. A statesman acts. I mean, they even went so far as to try and discredit the rescues that I had done in Afghanistan, in Israel, in Haiti, even though people from those rescues have made videos come forward. And even the mother and three children, who was part of the very first successful overland rescue out of Afghanistan, from Amarillo, Texas, out of Ronnie Jackson's district. Ronnie's even done videos on this. She just did another anniversary thing, thanking me and saying, my children and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you and your team. You know, there's an old saying, there's rules in war, there's rules in mud wrestling. There are no rules in politics. And it's political whack-a-mole. Anything that they think can temporarily slander you to increase their poll points, especially when they're behind and desperate,
Yeah.
they're going to use against you. But to your point, I don't care about medals. I never have. I care
Mm.
about my service. That was it. And I've honorably served this nation. I have my honorable discharge. I am a proud combat veteran out of the 82nd Airborne Division. And that's what matters.
I've always respected you. I send you texts every holiday. I don't think I've ever sent you a text asking you for a single thing. I just say,
No,
"Hey,
you've never.
I'm out here. We respect you. Happy Father's Day. Happy, Merry Christmas," because you're that type of guy. You deserve the respect. You've earned it. And you could see that in your endorsements. I mean, you said Ronnie Jackson has endorsed you. It was a sergeant major.
No, Master Sergeant Earl Plumley, Medal of Honor
Yeah.
recipient. Amazing guy. He was both a Force Recon guy, and then he got smart and went over to the Army. Um, amazing guy. He stood by me. He's listened to the actual testimonies of some of the people who I've rescued. And then obviously we got the endorsement of President Donald J. Trump, third time that we've gotten his endorsement, his support to back us. And what's even funnier, go read President Trump's endorsement. Now, you're talking about the President of the United States. What is one of the things he talks about? A proud combat veteran and Bronze Star recipient. So I guess my opponents know more than the President of the United States or
Yeah.
the Department of the Army.
Very sad. There's an old saying, show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. I mean, if you look at your endorsements, Ronnie Jackson, Master Sergeant Plumley,
Chairman Brian Mast, the only double
yeah,
amputee combat veteran,
yeah, I like him, man. He's sharp.
Chairman of the Foreign Affairs.
Yeah, we have some really good people in the Republican Party.
We do.
They need your leadership there. The best thing about you is you rise above this. And what they're trying to do is chop you down. They're trying to wear you out. They're trying to make you respond because some of us respond emotionally. We're human beings. They want that trigger moment
Yeah.
where they can catch you saying something you shouldn't have said or losing control of your emotions. And that's what they're going to use. The best thing about it is you've been in combat. And here's the other thing about combat. And I found out about all the veterans that we help being a combat medic is different because not only are you in that combat zone, you could be in that firefight. You're trying to save a life. You're not even worried about yours. So you have all the tools to deal with stress and emotion and response. They're not going to get to you. But to me, as the one watching it, I'm embarrassed for the
Yeah.
Republican Party. That person who says he's in the Republican Party or she, um, I'm embarrassed that they're Americans,
Yeah.
and it's very sad.
It is sad. I mean, look, when we've gotten to the point of, politics used to be about your policies, your voting record, what you've done in Congress. Look, I sit on the Armed Services Committee, and then in the Armed Services Committee, I sit on the subcommittees of intelligence, special operations, military readiness, and military personnel. But I also sit on the Foreign Affairs Committee, where I'm actually the chairman of oversight and intelligence. And I sit on the Western Hemisphere subcommittee, which allows us to be able to focus on the Monroe Doctrine, et cetera. That's what they should have been focused on. But they know that my record and what I do in Congress and the fact that I lead the entire state of Florida, Florida's got 28 congressional districts. I lead the entire state of Florida in constituent services. So they knew they couldn't attack my record. So the best that they can do is hope that all three of them independently can slander me in different ways to just seed a little bit of doubt into other constituents or voters to try and sway things in their favor. And that's just the disgusting nature of politics.
You know, we talked before this. We've talked before. It's different when you're up on a stage and you're talking to people and you're trying to get them to understand where you stand. But it's these interactions where I know where you stand. I know where you stand when it comes to veterans, when it comes to the military, when it comes to America, when it comes to people having being able to afford good jobs.
Yeah.
Um, they just can't read that because their brains are so filled with, I don't know if it's filled with TDS. I don't know if it's filled with hate for America. I don't know if it's filled with hate for themselves, their genders, whoever they are. Um, but they can't see the real Cory Mills that I see, that Veterans for America first sees, that all the people I know see. We see the hero. We see the leader, the man that you are, and we're going to help get that out because it's important. America
Well,
needs you in Congress.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm the farthest thing from a hero, but I'm just proud of the service that I've been able to provide for it.
To
My
us,
service
you're a
didn't
hero.
start. Well, I appreciate that. I think the real heroes are the guys like Earl Plumley and the guys who would sacrifice to sit in Arlington in our national cemeteries. Those are the heroes to me. These are the people that actually allow the flag to continue to fly. I mean, it's like they used to say, our flag doesn't fly because of the wind. It flies by the last breaths of all the sacrifices by the heroes before us. That's what matters to me and why I serve. This is also the same reason, when you sit on these stages, you'd sometimes get a 1 minute, maybe in some of these bigger debates, you get a 2 minute time to actually speak on things. And when you're talking about military service, when you're talking about veteran impacts, when you're talking about geopolitics or different policies, condensing that into a 1 minute, 2 minutes, pretty tough. And you expect the mudslinging. It's just part of it. But you talked about how it doesn't get to you. It gets to you. One of the things that bothers me the most is whenever I get my military service questioned because it's the
Yeah.
one thing that we're so proud of. And I think I was telling you about it just a few moments ago. I had lost what we call it in the Army the "I Love Me" book, right? Where you put
Yeah.
everything in it and you just cram all your service. Everything. I lost that thing for almost 3 years. And isn't it like ironic that like the other day you're getting attacked, and I was like, God, if I only had this book. And I go into my campaign bus and I'm digging for T-shirts and I find my "I Love Me" book with all of my files and everything in it. And I thought to myself, God is so good. Like he literally put this into my hands right when I needed it. But look, whether I'm serving in Congress and that's not a career for me. I mean, my whole thing is it's never supposed to. Public service in that nature wasn't ever supposed to be a career. But whether it's there or whether it's doing child rescues with things like the Sentinel Foundation or the Never Forgotten Foundation or whatever the case may be, I'm always going to be in service of some type. It's the same as you. You can't leave service. Look at what you're doing with the Veteran Recovery Coalition. Look what you're doing with trying to make sure that you improve the service and the actual like taking care of our community. It's in us. You're born with service in your blood or you're not. You know, it's like loyalty. Loyalty can't be taught, trained, or bought. It's with you or it's not. And it's just who we are. That's what makes us different. That's why our wiring is different. That's why our dark humor can't be really acknowledged and understood by most people. And that's okay. This is our family, our fraternity, and our coalition.
And they're trying to bring it down. They're
They're
trying
trying to bring it down.
they're trying to ruin it. They're trying to ruin the military, where leaders are born and they're raised and they're taught loyalty, duty, respect, selfless
Because they
service,
don't have it.
integrity, personal courage. They're taught that, and sometimes they don't have a mother or a father. They're they need that in the military, and when you try to water that down and make it weak, that's
Yeah,
intentional because they don't want strong men. They don't want guys.
that's right.
They want weak men, and
And you
it's
really
like
hit it on the mom and dad part. I mean, look, I've always wanted to serve. I joined when I was 17 years old, but you know, I came from a broken home. Like my mom and dad had drug and substance abuse issues as, you know, from the time I was born past. My dad ended up doing 32 years in prison. My mom did 7.5 years in prison. I bounced house to house for a long time until I was about 9 years old. I used to actually sleep at my cousin's house, who's 6 months younger, because we went to the same school. So his mom could take us to school and kind of look out for me a little bit. And my grandparents, who were just really simple people, my grandfather was a welder. He used to MIG, TIG, Heliarc, things like this. And my grandmother, who was a stay-at-home mom, who was a cosmetologist, she used to do hair on the weekend for the ladies after church in our community. That's the way I was brought and raised. You know, they adopted me, they took care of me, but we came from, you know, a poverty-ridden family. I mean, look, we sometimes in a couple of years we had like just over kind of the low income, like got to middle class type thing. And then my grandfather had a quadruple bypass and had to get on, you know, apply for disability and got rejected. And we were almost losing our home. I mean, I can remember there was one year in 1993 where we lived on 60, think about this in today's society, imagine $6,800 for an entire year. And the only thing that allowed us to survive was that, like, my grandfather and I used to hunt and fish. And my grandmother actually used to I used to hate this meal because I'd have it 2, 3 times a week, but it was just rice, tomato gravy. Sometimes she'd put sausage in it and cornbread. And it was a filler. And I remember coming through the doors as a kid and being like, oh, God, not again, right? If you asked me today, what would be the one thing that you would want? I would want one day with my grandmother to make rice, tomato gravy, and cornbread.
isn't that crazy?
I mean, but I went into serve because I didn't want to put the pressures on my family and I wanted to make them proud. And that was what military was about me. It was like, this is going to make me a man. This is going to teach me the discipline that I need. This is going to bring the family that I've always craved for with that brotherhood. The military was more than just service. It was family. It was unity. It was discipline. It was mental strengthening. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without my military service.
I say that all the time. You know, sometimes you look back at things you did in the military and could you have done them better, a different way? But
Of
then you
course.
look at where you are today and you say, why do I think that way? And look where I am. Look at what I'm doing. Um, but you're an amazing man. I never asked
Thank
about
you.
your, you told me once about your childhood and I never really pushed because I don't know. Sometimes I don't like bringing things up like that about people's family, but that's the story. See, that's what makes you special.
Well,
Um,
I lost my first fights because I can remember my mom used to have boyfriends and all of them were just as, you know, drugs and things like that. And they would try and I remember I was 8 years old and one of her boyfriends obviously was hitting my mom, very abusive guys sometimes. And I'd run down there thinking I'm going to protect my mom. And I remember he kicked me through the door in this little hallway. We were living in Winter Haven, Florida. And my mom, obviously, like, is going to protect her son. So she jumps on him and she gets it 10 times worse. And I just remember having that realization, like, God, you know, like I want to protect my mom, but when I do, it makes it that much worse. And you know, imagine trying to run that rationale at 8 years old of saying, okay, I want to protect mom, but if I do protect mom and then she tries to protect me, then it's going to get worse. It's better for me just to not to do anything. I mean, and you know, you grow up with that type of thing, and that's why I remember when I got in the military, I was like, so let me get this straight. I already grew up hunting and stuff. I said, you're going to give me clothes, you're going to pay me, you're going to house me, you're going to feed me, and you're going to give me a better rifle than I grew up hunting with. This is the greatest job in the world.
yeah.
But you know, it gave me a chance to fight back. But also, I think it was a way to learn how to control my anger from childhood trauma or acknowledging the fact that it did bother me. And even though like I grew up not thinking it bothered me, but that's why I was so great in like just staying in. So my grandparents kept me in sports, kept me in boxing, things like this. Um, but again, I just can't give enough credit to what the military's done, and military makes men, and that's the thing. And like my story is not different. A lot of our military service members comes from difficult family upbringings, and it brings us together and allows us to fight for something. I think that's just some of the brilliance of like our military.
And that's why you need to stay in Congress because your story is the story of so many young American boys and girls, and they can learn. They can see, I have it bad at 8, 9, 10, 12, whatever it is. I'm suffering, my family's suffering, but look at him. That's where I could be one day if I walk the right path. And maybe
Yeah.
it's not college, maybe it's not getting a job, maybe it's the military. Look at Cory Mills. That's the story. That's the story I'm putting out. Um,
And I mean, that's the
you
thing.
are the
The
success
greatest part of
story.
America, you're not determined by what your abilities are just because you're socioeconomic class or how you were brought up. This country, in any other nation, brought up in a poor family with drug abuse and law enforcement issues, things like that, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be where I'm at today. And that's what we talk about American exceptionalism. We talk about the American dream. We talk about not having that glass ceiling. I shouldn't be. I sit in rooms with, a lot of silver spoon kids who had it all. But it just drives you to make sure that I go and spend a lot of time with kids and I do a lot with our military academy recruitments, things like that, and recommendation nominations. And I literally always tell these kids my story. And I say, look, I'm not going to ask you about your backgrounds, but let me tell you about mine. And if it's similar to yours, just know that what your parents had done or what your kind of history is doesn't define you. You can be whoever you want to be. And that's the greatness of this nation. And that's what serving in the military preserves for others.
What a story, man. This is the story I'm getting out because this is the story that American children need to hear. This is the story Republicans, Democrats, Independents need to hear who you are and what you represent. You don't represent children on the right. You don't represent poor kids on the right. You represent all Americans, and you're the American success story. And I got to get this message out to more people because they need to know. And these horses asses who are challenging your military service, maybe they need to take a look at this video. Um, maybe they'll understand they're not doing the right thing, and they're selfish, and they're just chasing power and wealth, and not trying to make
They're
America great.
so eager to get a title. I mean, that's really what it is. They're so eager. These are individuals who are looking for a job. I wasn't looking for a job. I was looking at a way to serve. I was looking at a way to improve things. I was looking at things. How do I preserve this way of life, this Western civilization, this greatest experiment in constitutional republic for my kids, for my grandkids? I mean, there's it's clear whenever you see someone and you hear them, you go, okay, you want to serve because you want a title, or you want to serve because you care and love this country. And a lot of these guys, they just want to be called congressman or
Yeah.
congresswoman. And that's not a reason to serve. I mean, the greatest title I'll ever carry isn't Sergeant Mills, isn't CEO, isn't chairman of the board, isn't congressman. My greatest title will always be dad. And that's the only one that matters.
Yeah, same with me, man. I could care less about titles. But that's why we get along so well, and that's why I was waiting to get this endorsement when you had some time because it's very important.
Well, I'm
And when I saw
grateful.
that debate, I think I called you the next day.
You did.
I was like, this is just not right. But I don't want to hold you up. You have a lot of campaigning to do, and your time is precious. I know that. I know you'd keep going. But because that's the type guy you are, but I recognize you have a lot to do as a congressman and running for re-election and beating back these liars and these dishonest people that I just wish they would sit with you and ask you about you and all the things you've gone through before they decide to run and slander you. They may just sit there and go, maybe God will come in their head and say, is this really the right thing you want to do? Is
Yeah.
attack a man like this who's accomplished so much. But Mr. Cory Mills, you are a great congressman. You're a great representative. You're a great elected official. To me, I know you hate to hear it, but you're a hero. You're a hero to a lot of young kids, and we wish you the best. We're going to do whatever we can to help you win.
Thank you.
You're exactly what kids in America need to look at and try to become.
Well,
So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And, look, I'm just going to keep doing and being who I am. They can slander me, they can attack me, they can try and tear me down. At the end of the day, Only one man can judge me.
Yeah.
And so I just got to keep going and facing forward. I'm never going to face the trials and tribulations of those like Job. So no one's shooting at me. All they're doing is verbal pugilism. I can live through that.
Well, it's our honor to give you our National Veterans for America First endorsement. You've earned
Thank
it.
you so much.
You've earned it with your service to in the military. You earned it with your service to your country. You earned it with your service to Americans and to people who are suffering. You're just a class guy.
I
So
appreciate that. Thank you,
thank you for
brother.
everything you're doing.
Thank you for everything. Appreciate that.
This is Robert Cornicelli, National President for Veterans for America First. Have a great day.